Hello and thanks for stopping by. This is RC Pro-Am for the NES, developed by Rare and released in 1988. I'm playing this game off of a cartridge on a retro USB AVS, and I think this is one of the best games for the NES system overall. Granted, if you're not a fan of racing games, I'm sure this one's going to do nothing for you, but overall, we're talking a highly polished game for the NES. It also doesn't end, it just keeps going, so here you're really playing for a high score, or maybe until you get bored. You'll keep upgrading and advancing your car, and then after 20 or 30 levels, you and your opponents will max out. Eventually, you're going to get to a level where you can't beat an opponent car, unless you're utilizing offensive weapons. As the title indicates, you're piloting a remote control car, and you're racing other cars of the same type. In this regard, there's a basic equality amongst the vehicles, although as you progress, you will hopefully be upgrading your car. There are a few areas that you have to focus on in this game. First and foremost, you're trying to win a race. First place is great, of course, but it's last place that pushes you out of the game. The game will let you continue, but you should be playing to win, not to continue. There are plenty of obstacles in the game that you have to avoid. First, we have water puddles. If you run into a puddle on the track, you're going to slow down. If you run into an oil slick, you're going to spin around. Spinning around isn't always a huge problem because ultimately you might not crash and you can keep moving. Still, you should always avoid these as best as you can. There are also a bunch of things you're going to want to pick up as you encounter them. First, you have letters. There's going to be one for each level, and altogether it's going to spell the word Nintendo. If you can spell Nintendo, you're going to upgrade all the vehicles to the next model. You start out the game with the pickup truck, but you can progress to a four-wheeler and then to an off-roader. These cars get progressively better and faster. Next, we have items that will actually upgrade your car. You can pick up tires, engine parts, and a turbo. Before you start each level, you can see exactly how far your car has progressed, and you can upgrade each individual area 4 times. These areas are important, and you want to pay attention to them whenever they appear. They're going to affect how well you can drive the race. There are also a few other things you have to be aware of, mostly the zippers, or they're really just boost arrows. If you drive over one of these boost arrows, they're going to push you along faster. Eventually, you're going to need to use these as you get into the higher races. There's going to be no way around it, they're a necessity. There are also roll cages. They're just sitting on the track, these little white, flashy type of cages here. They protect you from crashes for a bit, and they're super useful when the races get going. The last items you have to worry about are bombs and rockets, and, well, ammunition. The ammunition are these little stars. You want to pick up as many of these as you can. The B button is going to be your accelerator, and as a racing game, that's pretty much what you're pressing the whole time, but the A button is how you're going to use missiles and bombs. These are great for destroying the competition for a few seconds, and after a while, like I said earlier, they become a necessity. As you learn the different maps, you're going to start to get a sense of where you are in the race, and how close you actually are to the finish line. When you get in tune with this, you're going to know when you need to try to start shooting or bombing an enemy. If you can slow somebody down with only one turn left in the game before the end, you can use this to your advantage, and you can potentially launch ahead, or maybe even push from, last place to third place and not lose the race. This is the type of game where you can be doing great the entire game and be ahead, and in the span of 2 or 3 seconds you can go from first to losing the game entirely. It can get pretty intense sometimes when you really get into it. You can't beat this game, it just keeps going. But I have reached the last car on the list, and I've maxed out all the stats, and I've raced levels where you're going to completely lose unless you destroy enemies with offensive weapons. It's even mentioned in the manual that this is how it's supposed to be. I can tell you that those upper levels are really rough. RC Pro-Am was also ported to the Sega Genesis in 1992, but it had a different name. It was called Championship Pro-Am, and apparently it also had some enhanced graphics and some additional features, so I'm going to have to track myself down a copy. RC Pro-Am also had 2 sequels that I have yet to play, didn't know they even existed before I started doing this research. There was Super RC Pro-Am, and that was released in 1991 for the Nintendo Game Boy. I don't know much about that one, except that you can apparently link up to 4 different players to play at once. There was also an RC Pro-Am 2 for the NES, and that offered 4-player mode that was also released in a compilation for the Xbox One as well. Well, that's all I have for RC Pro-Am today for the NES. Great game. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.